Hi, everyone, and welcome to RELEX Talks, our monthly live stream on LinkedIn, where we discuss the latest and most interesting topics touching on supply chain, retail, CPG, and more. We're live on the second Wednesday of every month at 9 a.m. sharp Eastern, rain or shine. Follow RELEX Solutions on LinkedIn to keep up to date with the latest developments in the retail and CPG world. I'm your host, Casey McSherry, and with me today to discuss the findings are my RELEX colleagues, Steve Boon and Amy Higgins from Accenture. Amy, Steve, welcome to the show. Would you give us a quick little introduction and a bit about your roles?
Yeah,
Steve, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, no problem. So, hi everybody. My name's Steve Boon. I'm basically the VP of Space and Assortment here at RELEX. Been working in the industry for 23, 24 years now. So, have a lot of experience with CPGs and resellers globally. And before I get into some of these things, I just want to kind of send out thoughts and prayers for everybody that's going through or what's going to be happening in Florida over the next couple of days. And hopefully everyone can stay safe.
Thank you, Steve. And hi, everyone. My name is Amy Higgins, and I am part of our technology group here at Accenture. And I specialize in assortment and space capabilities. Much like Steve, been serving in this type of role for nearly 25 years. It's hard to believe. And thanks, Steve, for those kind words, not only for the folks in Florida, but also for the folks in North Carolina and Tennessee that are really trying to recover from recent events.
Yeah, devastating news this past week, and just thoughts and prayers all around. I also wanted to give a shout out to everyone attending Grocery Shop because it's the final day of Grocery Shop in Las Vegas. It's a bit early for the Vegas crowd to be joining us today, but they'll catch us. They'll catch the recording. I also wanted to remind our audience that the RELEX pricing and promo report that we discussed in our previous episode is now live, and you can find that on our website. The link will be dropped in the comments as we speak. But to get to the topic of today, which is just as interesting as last month, RELEX and Accenture have a strategic partnership where Accenture provides us with their expertise to help us deliver a seamless experience to our customers. And we, for example, worked together on supporting Lowe's seasonal inventory planning. So, Steve, Amy, you've both been working in category management and space planning for many years. It's an important part of any retail organization. Can you explain some of the challenges that retailers are trying to resolve, and importantly, what value they're aiming to achieve? Steve, do you want to start us off with that one?
Yeah, of course. So as I previously mentioned, I've been working with many retailers and CPGs across the years. And one thing that's remained common is what everybody's focus is, and that's how they can start to hyper-localize assortment and space planning in order to suit the needs and meet the needs of the consumer shopping within the store. However, what I would say is it's only in the past 5-6 years where I've really begun to understand and realize the impact that space planning has on the overall supply chain. So if I go back through the years, historically, when I've been working with retailers, there's very much a focus on how do we start to drive additional sales and additional profit from the category. So getting the correct product mix, getting that onto the shelf. However, more recently, and I guess given all of the challenges that retailers are going through and the various different needs of the customer, I've seen retailers changing that mindset. So yes, still have a strong core element that they're focusing on how do we start to grow the various different categories, but also trying to look at how space can start to drive value through the overall kind of value chain within an organization. So if I start to kind of put that into a little bit of context and give a couple of examples on this, is that many retailers that I'm working with, we start to speak with them, we ask them various different questions on one of the key things that we're asking is, what does your availability look like in store? And many retailers will say that, look, we've got really good availability. So we've got maybe 95, 97, 98% availability within the store. And one of my favorite things that I start to do when I work with a retailer is to, first thing, let's go and walk around the store to see what things look like within the store and look like within the back room. And then, and then something that becomes very noticeable when going through those store walks is that you see lots of empty shelves. you see some of those key items that are not in stock on the shelf. And then when you start to actually look at what's going on and you have a look in the back room, a lot of those items will be in the back room. So there are many different reasons that you'll have gaps on the shelf. However, one of the big drivers in kind of having that stock on the shelf is how do retailers don't generally completely unify, let's say, supply chain and space planning. So there's often a mismatch between what gets delivered to the store versus what gets placed onto the shelf and then what gets carried through to the back room. And one of the big observations that I have within retail is if you start to truly unify these different areas, then you can have a big impact on the on-shelf availability, because you can make sure that what's actually getting to delivered to the store lines up with exactly what's on the planogram and can get placed directly onto the shelf. So the on-shelf availability can dramatically be improved. Now, as a direct implication of that, not only do you have better availability for the products in the store that consumers can start to buy, it leads into many additional benefits that can be recognized by the retailer. So think about areas like store operational costs. So if you're in a situation where products are turning up to the store and they can get placed directly onto the shelf and they can last through until the next delivery that's coming into the store, it means that the in-store staff can reduce the amount of time that they're reshelving or going to the back room and placing products back onto the shelf. So they're spending less time doing that manual work and more time with the customers within the store to help them to get what they need. And then in a similar kind of way, if we can utilize a localized demand to plan space planning in the first place, that can then further optimize supply chain. So it means that when we are picking items from a distribution center and when we are starting to deliver items to the store, we can start to reduce the amount of time that's happening there. And when you think of some of the biggest cost centers to any retailer, and you kind of look at the end-to-end supply chain costs, it's the store shelving and receiving, which make up a significant proportion to those costs. I think it's almost 40% of those overall costs. And there's some of the direct things that you can start to enhance when we start to look at space planning, how that can drive value to various different areas.
Yeah, amazing. Many points there. Amy, what do you make of that? Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think, Steve's experience in the industry, he totally understands the big picture. And, for those that know me, they know that I will often say space is the heart of retail. And, as space planners, having served in that job and been part of transforming teams and organizations over the years, the space planner has a pretty big challenge. They have a lot of stakeholders that they are trying to support in their process, be that the merchandising team, the supply chain team, the store operations team, right? They're really the group that have to bring together the strategy and make sure that that the store operators can execute against that. And that just requires such a delicate balance of, not just thinking about a localized assortment, but thinking about how you're going to sustain and maintain a localized assortment, taking into account, not just the customer needs, but I've got supply chain constraints, I've got replenishment strategies, I've got DC slotting issues, and a lot of our clients are, starting to ask that question of how can we get our arms around this from end-to-end retail, not just kind of the individual pieces and parts, but end-to-end. How do we make sure that we are all, striving to an optimal answer that takes all of these stakeholders in the organization and their, individual, KPIs, and optimize across all of that.
Yeah, and Amy, what do you think is preventing retailers from achieving these benefits from the heart and achieving that delicate balance?
It tends to vary depending on where a particular retailer is in their, I guess, path to maturity is the way I'd like to think about it. We see some of our clients that are still, still leveraging Excel. Excel is an amazing tool, but, as we think about trying to break down silos and make sure that that different organizations are not just focusing on kind of their, point of view, and back to optimizing this end to end. I think one of the challenges that they're facing is just having a single decision support system that's going to enable that, right? So often we see that, category managers or, assortment analysts, space analysts, supply chain folks, they have their individual data, for their particular capability area. But when we think about bringing that down to a platform where we're not moving data all over the place, but rather everyone can show up at their desk and get straight to work with making decisions rather than trying to manage data. I think that's been a problem for a long time. We've been talking about that for a long time, but I think that the trend is really starting to shift towards platforms and making sure that everyone is operating off of a common, the same data, and making decisions end to end to support that.
Yeah. Steve, what do you think of those points?
No, I fully agree with everything that Amy's just said. And if I could kind of put it into kind of three key areas that I think that although retailers are working very much in a single category review process where there is lots of kind of exchanging data, etc., that happens during the process to get to the right results, they're still in effect working in some of those retail silos, so not utilizing that same data set to make ultimately the same decisions on how they get the product to the store and onto the shelf. And then I think that the other two areas that spring to mind is ensuring that retailers have the right technology in place so that they can scale to achieve these things, because it's always great to have a great plan to work towards, but if the final execution doesn't happen in the store and the people in the store can't execute that plan, then there becomes a big problem in terms of you lose a lot of the benefit that you were trying to achieve. And then the third thing, because I think it's always a constant evolution from a retailer's point of view, and we can never underestimate the change management that needs to happen within retail organizations, because I think that retailers have to remain focused on this is what we're trying to achieve, and to make sure that all kind of areas of the business understands the what and the why and the how we're going to do it, so that we can realize some of these benefits.
Yeah, kind of similar to what you were saying, Amy. It's about the plan and it's about the execution as well.
Amy says it much.
Many kind of switching a little bit of our focus, but many retailers, suppliers, solution vendors are now talking a lot, excuse me, about Gen AI, generative AI. These words can mean many things to many different people, but how does Gen AI help to solve some of these challenges that retailers are facing today? Amy, do you want to take lead?
Yeah, I'll lead with that one. If you're tracking Accenture, Accenture is going very big into not just AI. AI's been around for a very, very long time. All of us probably use some form of AI, every day. But with Gen AI, Accenture is really taking a very strong stance. They're making a very strong investment, internally as well, driving a lot of education for all of us here at Accenture. And so, we're very passionate about leading with that, for our customers. And as we meet with our clients, a lot of them are asking, like, how is this going to impact my business? Just looking, again, end to end across retail or across CPG, how can this impact my business? How can I use this to achieve some of these things that we've talked about and overcome some of these challenges that we've just discussed? And, I think about, in the area of assortment and space planning in particular, we've seen the solutions that are available kind of evolve, through the traditional, customer segmentation and understanding your customer data and getting into, space-aware assortment. Those type of capabilities, do exist today. But we're starting to even imagine, moving that forward through being able to ask, how can I get a better presentation, or how can I get, better sales or achieve better KPIs? And as we start, seeing this technology move, and again, back to those previous points, getting our arms around the data that these models can leverage, you'll be able to say, how can I optimize my assortment with an eye to store labor constraints and shelf replenishment frequency, right? There's always going to be that delicate trade-off. Maybe we need to start exposing, pack sizes. Oftentimes when we think about the labor efficiencies in the store, we want to drive towards a pack out that reduces those touch points and those footsteps back and forth. But maybe there's inventory optimization opportunities and reducing pack sizes perhaps, or driving a more frequent replenishment cycle. These are the types of points of optimization end to end that we're starting to see these tools be able to expose for that, or be able to expose to the user community. And I'm honestly, I'm amazed, for as many years as I've been doing that, I'm amazed at how quickly we're starting to see some of these capabilities become a reality. Just where we were 6 months ago with, imagine if you could do these things, or imagine if I had some type of planogram advisor type solution, to now we're starting to see these prototypes come to life. So it's very exciting, and I will say it's a very exciting time in technology to be in the assortment and space area.
Yeah, it really is. And just to kind of add into Amy's point, because I think everything that she said was extremely relevant, we're seeing a big trend within retailers that, if you think about how assortment and space planning is traditionally done, generally it's looking at that historical data set to how to make kind of future decisions. So looking at the trends over the past kind of quarter, or the past 52 weeks worth of data, to plan what's going to happen on the planograms, etc. But now retailers are starting to look at how do they incorporate that forecast demand to drive some of these decisions. And forecast demand, it's not just about how do we start to predict the sales moving forward and what are the trends going to be. It contains everything that Amy's just been talking about. So how do we know that the batch sizes, how do we know that the pack size of the products that are actually going to get delivered to the store, and in what quantities? So we can move away from looking at that average historical data to looking at, right, how do we make sure that, again, the planogram is in line with what's going to get delivered to the store, and how can you optimize that planogram in line with that number, instead of just looking at average sales?
Yeah, excellent point. And as you both have mentioned, for many years, retailers have been working towards hyperlocal to better serve their customers. There are many solutions, including RELEX, that can help them achieve this. However, what do you think the future looks like in 5 to 10 years? See if you want to take lead on that.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. So if I think about the past 20 years I've been doing some of this, space planning has always been evolving, right? But it's always had that same objective, like we talked about earlier. It's always, how do we meet the demand of the consumer that's coming within the store? But over those 20 years, the technology to do that has constantly evolved. So I think it was maybe in the early 80s, early 90s, where we first had space planning applications, and then we moved towards a level of automation and started to talk about those hyperlocal planograms, and that kind of thing will continue. However, if I'm thinking about what something like 2030 could look like, I very much see a fully autonomous space planning process. So removing all of the touches that need to happen. However, I also see that the actual role of space planning in its current form will evolve. You've got to think that retailers have so much data at their fingertips, whether it be data revolving around space planning, sales information, the labor costs within the store, all of the pricing, promotion, all of the different costs. So I think that the future starts to look at how does space planning evolve to adopt the practice of continuous category management? So what I'm kind of thinking about this, so imagine that in 2030, you're sitting down at your computer, if it's going to be a computer, or it could be the glasses or whatever the future holds. And instead of working through a 24-week category review process, you have a different situation. So you arrive, you kind of turn on the machine, and then it's, look, we have a new item coming into the organization. And then the solution can automatically recommend, okay, this is what we propose that the distribution of this item should be. And we also say that, look, this is the recommendation of how much space should be allocated to the products onto the shelf. But going above and beyond that, it should also give the information on, okay, what's the impact of bringing this item into the organization? So are there items that need to be discontinued? Are there items that need to be kind of reduced in space? And it can start to give the impact of what this would mean. So from a financial perspective, so what are the projected sales? What's going to be kind of the sales loss from removing other items? How is this going to impact the clearance process? So do we need to trigger a clearance process for items that are going to be discontinued, etc.? So giving more of a holistic overview to the impact of the change and what that's going to look like from the overall workforce. So instead of going through a process, we can make an instant decision based on the balance of the different cost centers to, do we want to activate that change? And that will be an automated process, right? So you click the yes, you make intelligent decisions on that, and then that triggers off the various different applications on what they need to do. And it could be similar from let's say from a supply chain perspective as well. So there could be an item that has too little space on the shelf. So within these 80 stores, this item's got too much space in the stores, or too little space in the stores. And that could mean that we are picking and delivering that item far too frequently to the stores. So we recommend that we increase the space in these 80 stores, and this will be the impact on the overall operational cost. So I think that we'll very much see a world where, because we have all of this data at the fingertips, it will be the role of the user to enable strategic changes, right, and move away from the dragging and dropping and the clicking and working through the various different processes. And Amy, I'm not sure of some of your thoughts on that, and kind of, or even what some of the challenges retailers will face in that kind of new world.
Gosh, 5 to 10 years, I think you're going to see some of these innovations happen way before then. So it's one of those things where, set your vision and ask why not. I think the technology is here, the data is here, these platforms are coming online, and honestly, I'm challenging, why can't we do autonomous planograms today, right? They may not be perfect, but as we think about all of the data and enriching these types of solutions with that information, now we can start thinking about how we might change our merchandising strategy. We think about just kind of the different types of retailers out there, but even just in grocery, where there's traditionally very clean blocking lines, and presentation is a significant driver of customer experience, right, and making it very easy to shop a category. But how might you start blurring those lines a little bit to drive better operational efficiencies or better supply chain efficiencies, and enabling an analyst, and maybe we don't have the line of an assortment analyst and a space analyst. Maybe it's just we have analysts who are making these decisions, leveraging the predictive modeling and saying, yes, that's the decision that we want to make, and then executing against it. And I think the solutions to automate or create planograms at scale, we see those exist today. I think some of the challenges that we're seeing with that is having these upfront analytic capabilities that are going to drive the decisions that are just push button execution. But I think that time is very, very close to the point that we can start prototyping some of these and realizing them and testing and learning, which is going to be very important as we continue to go forward, is to test, learn, and further enrich that process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be amazing if this tech was delivered perfectly, but it's a lot of trial and error to
That's right.
fine tune it to your business.
Yeah, and
I love this future we're imagining.
I think the future's here.
yeah, I agree. The future is here, and I think that one of the bigger challenges, I think that the technology is already available for some of these things, and I think that retailers will also need to go through a process of kind of change to understand, okay, with these new technologies, what's the overall impact to my organization? And do we need to change the way that people are targeted to line up with gaining that end-to-end value?
Yeah, and what are some of the roadblocks do you think on companies adopting these new
Yeah,
changes and these new
to be honest, I think that is probably the biggest roadblock, right? That it's all about how to enable these types of changes within an organization, because there are many different departments in a retail organization that are targeted on many different KPIs. And as the world begins to kind of evolve and begins to change, then some of that needs to happen at the same time. So I don't necessarily see it as a roadblock. I just think that there is going to be an evolution of how that takes place to meet what the new world could be.
Yeah. Any thoughts you wanted to add, Amy?
No, I think that, from a roadblock perspective, that, we've kind of addressed those, but as I think about, those that are listening today, and, what might they take away from this is, we've talked a lot about change, and, often we say, be open to change. And, my point of view on this is that, this technology is going to move very fast. And if you are already kind of wondering, where you may be on your particular journey or on your path to maturity, a colleague of mine, once said that, never has technology moved this fast, and never is it going to move this slow again. And so, as leaders in organizations, right, as leaders of space or assortment or merchandising capabilities, I think it's very important to, set your vision and be bold in your vision, and think about adopting a why not, like why can't we make this happen, and then chase it aggressively, and be the driver of change in the organization. Because I think those are the retailers that are going to kind of jump on this. It's not a blip. This is a game-changing moment in technology and for retailers. And as we think about moving forward, I think they really need to be chasing after it, and be willing to go through this test and learn. And this, it's not perfect, but you can really be on the leading edge, and and driving value very early for your organization.
Absolutely. So we're almost at time here. I have one final question for the two of you, which is, if you could leave retailers and CPGs watching this with any advice, what would it be? Steve, do you want to start us?
Yeah, and I really don't want to kind of repeat what Amy just said, but I think that the most important thing that she just spoke about is chasing change. She mentioned this to me a few weeks back, and I think the world does evolve very fast, and retailers, CPGs need to get ahead of that curve. And just because something's working great today, it doesn't mean that it's going to be working great tomorrow. So looking at the art of the possible, and how to move forward in that kind of direction.
Amazing. Amy, I know you said a bunch already, but any other last points you wanted to add?
No, nothing to add. Just thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you and your audience today. It's really been a pleasure, and it's always a joy to work alongside Steve. So I really appreciate the time.
Likewise. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you so much for being here. All right, guys, it's time to wrap up for today. Thanks so much to Amy Higgins and Steve Boon for joining us. And thank you for watching RELEX Talks. Don't forget to follow RELEX Solutions on LinkedIn for our insights in the upcoming episode on November 13th, where we'll be discussing demand sensing. And don't worry if you can't catch us live. Our shows are available on demand on our LinkedIn page and on our YouTube channel. I'm your host, Casey McSherry, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Casey.